Welcome in the great Chris Denari. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Quick turnaround, getting ready for tonight's game.
I'm telling you, I know that.
I'm here in my home office, so I didn't have to get into Salt Lake City at 2 in the morning or whatever that was. So, another tough one last night for the Pacers. 3-point game. They've played half of their games. 6 of the 12 have been decided by 4 points or less. They have an overtime win in there. They have an overtime loss. So that was a tough one last night.
I guess the positive part of that is you looked at, well, there's positives there, and so we're close, and just you got to get on the other side of that. It's better than I guess getting blown out and feeling that you're not quite there. And they've dealt with injuries to get to that point too. So it's kind of they've kind of navigated this. And you mentioned having back-to-back games, and then they play again on Saturday. Man, normally they got a little more space in there, but man, they're kind of packing them in right now.
Yeah, early in the year, they tend to pack them in. And in fact, after the win in Sacramento on Sunday, I say we, because from a broadcast standpoint, it's the same. It was the first time we had 2 days off between games all year, and that picks up again. So looking at the schedule, starting tonight in Utah, play every other day with back-to-backs thrown in all the way until Friday, December 3rd. And then they don't play again until Monday, December the 6th. So that's a span of almost 15 games where you're playing either every other day and with a back-to-back thrown in. But, what was disappointing last night is to learn a few hours before the game that Karis LeVert, just his back had acted up a little bit. And so they held him out. Malcolm Brogdon was back, and he was terrific, especially in the fourth quarter to keep the Pacers close. He's leading the NBA in fourth quarter scoring at about 9 points per game, and he was really good last night. The disappointing thing was you weren't, and Dustin, as a Pacers fan, you weren't able to take advantage of a Denver team without the reigning MVP. Nikola Jokic did not play. He was suspended for the game based on what happened in their win against Miami on Monday. But oftentimes, how often do you see guys step up, right? And the Pacers have seen that this year. They lost a game in Washington when Bradley Beal didn't play. They lost a game in Charlotte when Terry Rozier didn't play. And last night, they had two young guys, Bones Highland out of VCU and Zeke Naji out of Arizona, a rookie and a second-year player that both had career highs. And they just played like, hey, it's the playground and we're going to go out and play. If we get beat tonight, so what? And that's how they played. And you got to give them a lot of credit. And so, disappointing loss. I guess the good news is less than 24 hours later tonight, you get another chance. But it's a really good Jazz team. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. So we all knew that the start of the season and this road trip would be difficult. We'll see what the Pacers can do tonight.
The thing. Well, I was just going to say the thing that always sticks out to me about these games they always scare me. When you have a star player sitting out, I always feel like that gives somebody on the bench, a rookie, a second-year guy, a guy who may not get as much playing time. It gives him kind of the opportunity to step up in a big way. And I feel like it just tends to happen. Those games scare me more than anything. I've seen it from Pacers players. Edmund Sumner was a guy last year who I thought took advantage of that. O'Shea Brissett. At times, I'm sure there were teams that were scratching their head like, we let O'Shea Brissett beat us? Like, what's happening here? So, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about is the last two games, maybe it extends even a little further, but TJ McConnell's scoring has stepped up. Has he been asked – he struggled shooting the ball, for his career, but also for the first portion of this season. Has he been asked to be a little bit more aggressive when driving to the basket and maybe taking more shots than trying to find guys?
Well, I think he's doing, the one positive from last year under Nate Bjorker and, for the Pacers offensively was TJ McConnell's game. He was last year, because he doesn't take many threes, last year he was top 15 in the league in field goal percentage because he loves that little shot in the lane. And you're right. He had struggled, I think, through the first, 6, 7, 8 games. But on this road trip, he's had these are the three best consecutive games he's ever had in his career. 19, 18, and 16. playing with a lot of confidence, shooting that little 5-10 footer in the lane. I just think he creates so many opportunities for his teammates, but he has to be aggressive because they have to honor him. So yeah, he's doing a really nice job. You saw the pairing with he and Brogdon in the fourth quarter together. I thought that worked pretty well, not having LeVert out there. It was funny, Dustin, because this was a Denver team. This has been a high octane offense team in the past. Last year they averaged 115 a game. This year they're right around 100. They've been more of a defensive team, and they have not shot the three well, except for Will Barton. And last night Will Barton shot him well again. He's a kid that played at Memphis. He's been in the NBA for 10 years, and he's just a guy, as Quinn said, he can get you 30, and he got 30 last night. So they definitely had guys step up. I thought the Pacers had guys step up, but they played that entire fourth quarter from behind. And I think we all have watched, any type of game over the years. The longer you stay behind, it's just harder, to get the lead. And the Pacers had, I think, a couple possessions in the fourth quarter when they could have taken the lead. I think maybe the game changes a little bit, but they just weren't able to do it.
And the thing that I noticed too is down the stretch, I don't think the Pacers played well for a majority of that game. I think that's a fair assessment. But to me, this was almost some of the games we saw against the Wizards. The Pacers would hit some shots. They couldn't get that one stop that they needed. They got one down the stretch. They got a lucky break with the missed free throw there towards the end of the game and had a chance to tie it. But to me, I still see defensive progress. This isn't a team that I'm afraid is going to give up 140 points on a given night. So I think there are still some growing pains going on with this team. But I think when you look at the whole picture, the defense is getting better. And I do feel like playing in so many close games, as you mentioned, 6 out of the 12 decided by 4 points or less. I think that bodes well for this team when you get Karis LeVert back at full strength. If TJ Warren's able to continue to improve and get back on the floor, I think that they're going to have the scoring at some point in the season to win these games. And I think the defense is playing well enough to, if you get Karis LeVert back healthy, if you get TJ Warren back healthy, they're going to rattle off. They could rattle off 6 or 7 straight at any given time.
Well, I think you're right. The defense is important. Rick Carlisle says you have to control what you can control. You can control effort. You can control defense. And now 4 of the last 6 opponents have been below 100 points. They did not like how they played defense last year. Nobody did. For many reasons, it cost a coach's job. And then early in the year, they gave up 123 in the opener and 135. That you're not going to win games doing that. Now they've lost some of these close games, giving up under 100. But I think once they get that offense going, and Rick Carlisle has said it's a process. Look, when you have a new coach and a new team, it's not an excuse. Sometimes it takes a while for guys to figure their roles out. But I have seen, as you said, Dustin, I've seen really good signs defensively. And I think that can carry over in a long way and create that win streak that you're talking about, especially when this team has an opportunity in December to get back home. I was looking at the schedule. They're in a stretch of 16 of 19 days on the road. So what happens is they play in Utah tonight. They've been on the road since last Thursday. Come home middle of the night tonight, play Saturday at home against Philly, and then Sunday get on a plane and go out east now for a week. That can be taxing. And so we've talked about this first part of the schedule. If you can just survive it, if you can just manage it, and get to the 1st of December, I'm not even going to say you're going to be a 500 team, but maybe 3-4 games under 500, then you can start rattling off some wins. I think that's going to be the most important thing for this team.
It's early on, the injuries they've had to fight through. It's kind of like the Colts we were talking about earlier, but the early on in the season, you don't want to get too far down in the hole, which is what happened to the Colts with an 0-3 start. But they've managed to get through these games thus far, kind of unscathed, speaking of that. But where are they health-wise as a team? We talked about Karis LeVert already, I know. But as far as going forward, how are they looking?
Well, I think the interesting thing tonight will be to see, can Karis LeVert go in the second night of a back-to-back? I think many of us thought that maybe he was going to sit one of these games because of coming back from the sore back. You know, many people thought it was a stress fracture back in training camp. So we'll just have to wait and see when the injury report comes out to see if Karis plays tonight. Isaiah Jackson is still out, but fortunately that's a week-to-week situation. But the real story is TJ Warren, and the news that has come out has been very positive, that his scans, he's out of the boot. His scans have shown a lot of progress with that stress fracture in his foot. And now we're looking at weeks when I think we were talking about months. There have been some national reports out there that he could be back as early as December. Rick Carlisle wanted to stress in a meeting with the media the other day, he goes, look, we don't want to put a timetable on this and put a lot of pressure on a guy to come back. But we do think he'll be back sooner rather than later. So that's something we will be following. If you look back at you look ahead, the Pacers still have 11 or 12 games in November. So if you could get him back at some point in December, I mean, you still have the bulk of your schedule left. The Pacers have played 12 games. Let's say they've played 25 to 30 when he comes back. He would still be available for you for 50 games of the season. And I think that would be huge for the Pacers.
How's the voice holding up? We're early on into the season, but they're giving you these back-to-back games, man. They shouldn't be doing that.
Oh, well, it's you get into a rhythm once the season starts. I will say that first week or so, you're like, man, I haven't done this for a while. But now, here I've already done, tonight will be my 15th game since October the 13th. That's half of a college basketball season in less than a month. So it's just a rhythm that you get into and feel good. And after I get off the interview here, I'll get to work and ready to go. It's another 9:00 start. We have an 8:30 pregame show tonight on Valley Sports, and then a 9:00 start from Salt Lake City.